It's a long way from San Francisco up to Whitefish, Montana, especially astride a motorcycle. But for a fella as serious about skiing as Gene is, it's worth the trouble. He'd heard a lot about the big mountain sitting way up there next to Glacier Park and wondered how many of those tales were true. Last season, Gene worked on the ski patrol in Colorado, and now he wanted to see for himself this Montana ski area. So Gene came looking for a job skiing on the patrol on big mountains, hoping to spend the coming winter trying out all that deep powder snow he'd heard so much about. The man to see about jobs on Big Mountain is Joe Moretta, the patrol chief. Sorry, he told Gene, all the patrol jobs are taken. But stick around if you can. There's always other work to be done once the season starts. So Gene figured that was a pretty good idea. What could be a better place to spend a few months till winter? Taking a look around, he saw the fresh mountain lake, pollution-free and crystal clear. Whitefish sits comfortable and easy in Montana's Rocky Mountains, with plenty to keep a fellow busy. Fishing, water skiing, hiking. The days flew by, and in autumn, the birch trees were the first to change their leaves to a deep golden color. The high mountain creeks began to collect ice along their banks. Strong winds brought cooler air sweeping across the lakes. Soon they too began to show a cover of ice. By late October, the mountain peaks of the Continental Divide had their first blanket of the winter snows. Summer's visitors had long since gone, and now it was quiet and peaceful. Not everybody plans to take it easy all winter, though. The folks who like skiing were getting mighty anxious for the big snows to come. They spend those few weeks getting their gear together and ready to go. By November, when the snow is finally deep enough, the big mountain bursts into life. Well, Gene got a job all right. Not on the patrol as he had hoped, but working as a lift operator. As jobs go, the work was enjoyable enough, but it was mighty tough watching all those folks having fun all day and not getting in on it himself. Whenever Gene ran into Joe, he'd ask about a patrol vacancy. The answer was always, "Sorry, not right now." The mornings were really the worst, especially when there was a fresh covering of light powder snow. It sure was hard to look out at that untouched snow as he rode up on the chair and know he couldn't be out enjoying it too. While Gene was up there greasing the chairlift shivs, he'd spot Joe heading out down the big face, checking snow conditions for the day. From the tower, Gene could see over to Glacier National Park, just 20 miles to the east. Somehow that beautiful view always made him feel better. He could see the fantasy forest too. The snow-covered fir and spruce trees seemed to beckon to him to come flying through them. Saw a few fellows from the ski patrol working their way into the North Bowl, one of the big mountain's little-known runs. Snowpacking machines never go into the North Bowl, so it's often full of beautiful, deep powder for those few who venture into it. The only skiing Gene got was going from tower to tower doing maintenance work. For Gene, it was always climb another tower, grease another shiv. By day's end, he'd watch the patrol in their last duty of the day, sweeping the hill for late skiers. He could see them go down runs called the Ridge, Bench Run, Hell Roaring, and many falls. Some 20-odd miles of runs to check out in those late afternoon hours. By the time Gene was free to ski, the sun had all but disappeared. It was hard to see well enough to find what bits of powder were left. Somebody else was having ski troubles of a sort. Joanne was spending the winter working as a waitress in Big Mountain's Alpenglow Inn. Joanne was an expert skier already, but she'd come here to learn to ski the powder snow, which can be a mighty difficult job if you haven't tried it before. Big Mountain had plenty of powder and Joanne had plenty of time, but getting it all together wasn't working too well. Just about the time she thought of giving it up, Joe showed up and offered to give her a hand. Ski patrolmen have to look out for all skiers, and in this case, Joe didn't consider it a job at all. Joanne did her best to ski the way Joe said, but it took a lot of practice and patience to get it right. Early one morning, when the air was still crisp and clear, Joanne and Joe rode to the top of the mountain and decided to give the packed slopes a try. It was soon obvious Joanne needed no help here. One of the nicest things about the big mountain is that you can ski just about anywhere and always find it uncrowded. But if you do want some companions, you won't have to look very hard. When you don't feel like going it alone, come on and join the crowd. About midwinter, Whitefish puts on its annual winter carnival, and things really start to pop. There are 3 days of games, races, contests, parties, and parades. All the local folks and out-of-town visitors get together for a real good time celebration. What with the big crowds coming for the carnival, more help was needed on the ski patrol, so Gene was to have his chance at last. That night in the Beers Tube, he was officially welcomed to the ski patrol and given a proper christening. It was true his new job was only to be a temporary one, but he hoped he could convince him to keep him on for the rest of the season.
Who is he? The Duke of Carnaby.
The Winter Carnival Parade in downtown Whitefish drew thousands of spectators, floats, and competitors.
See him walking with a swagger. Watch him sip his ice-cold lager. Flashy outfits, all his passion. He's a slave to every fashion. All the dollies idolize him.
Up on the mountain, Gene planned a little parade of his own. He figured he'd show those boys on the patrol that he knew the ins and outs, ups and downs of Big Mountain as well as any of them. Still wearing his carnival costume, he tried kicking a little snow, and the race was on. Just about the time he had worn most of them down, they pulled up at the big drift. It was time for a rest. So they stayed to watch those other fellows risk their necks. The Big Drift is a natural gully where the snow builds up into a high ridge, and it can give you a real trip just getting from one side to the other. Sometimes going too slow is as bad as going too fast. winter carnival was over, it was agreed that Gene had proved his right to continue on as a patrolman. Now he was really living. Gene's job called for plenty of responsibility, watching out for the safety of all those skiers. And sometimes he put in pretty long hours, but the great skiing more than made up for the work. But the best days were those when the whole valley and all the mountains woke up to find a fresh layer of feather-light powder snow, often over a foot deep. Now Gene could do more than just look. Now he was one of those first skiers flying down the mountain, over long reaches of trackless powder, down the big face, Inspiration, Nosedive, and Powder Track, leaving his tracks on that beautiful mile-high ski run called the Big Mountain. This has been a story about some of the people behind the scenes at our resort. Maybe you'd like to visit us and see things for yourself. We've got lots to offer: 5 lifts, chairs, T-bars, pommels, and slopes for all kinds of skiers, from deep powder to groomed beginners' hills. Accommodations for hundreds of guests right beside the lifts. 3 restaurants, bars, beers too, swimming pool and ski school. Wouldn't you like to spend a cool winter at Montana's Big Mountain?